Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my channel's Compendium for the week ending Monday, January 10th, 2022. Case file number 465, written by Prometheus Titan God. Secrets of the Sun Refusing to Rise. I have had a lot of little glitches happen, but I never thought of them as being as profound enough to call them a glitch. But now in retrospect, they definitely fit the bill. I usually wake up just after sunrise every day for work, but for some reason on this one day, I woke up about an hour before. When this happens, I usually just stay awake, because falling back to sleep for under an hour makes me feel even more tired than if I just stayed awake. And on this day, I was wide awake. So I started with my morning coffee and realized I had enough time to catch the newest episode of my only favorite show. So I sipped my coffee watching my show. From the angle I sat, I could clearly see the window behind my phone. Yeah, I forgot to mention I was watching the show on my phone. I was holding it in front of me with my left hand while I drank my coffee with my right hand. My eyes kept glancing at the window because I was waiting for the sun to rise. Halfway through my show, I saw it was still totally dark out. It wasn't even dusk. I checked the time at 6:43 a.m. Now this is weird. The sunrise at the time of the experience was around 6:45 and 7:15. I checked several clocks and thought, okay, it must be cloudy. I walked to the window and looked outside up in the sky. Nope, no clouds. I even saw stars. No faint distant glow, just darkness. Now I'll note, before the questions are asked, I knew where the sun rises in relation to my location. I see it almost daily. I even have my alarm clock set to go off just after it's dawn. Also, I wasn't tired, and no, I don't suffer from any mental disorders. Okay, now to the glitch. I sat back down to finish my show. I thought, it's just later in the year, sunrise is a little later. But then right after my show came back from commercial break, my alarm clock went off. 6:47 a.m. Okay, it's still pitch black out. I felt the feeling of wrongness, I guess I can call it. The sunrise should definitely be a faint glow now, even if there were clouds. So I even opened the window and stuck my head out to look out the sky again. I checked the time online. I said damn it to myself. It's been over a month without any weirdness like this. I really hoped it was over. I finished my show just looking outside from where I sat. My second alarm sounded. This was okay to get dressed and leave the alarm. It was 7:05, still pitch black outside. Now something really went off. I looked to see if there was an eclipse or something I wasn't aware of, or a huge storm that I didn't know was coming. I was looking for all reasonable explanations, but then I noticed something. There was a weird burning or burnt smell coming from outside, not like smoky, but like when an electrical fire happened and burnt metallic plastic smelling lingers. There was also a weird mechanical screech or grinding in the far distance. It was also very echoey. I would normally assume it was someone's car making that smell, and the sound was distant construction, but there also wasn't any core or traffic sounds. None of the usual sounds of people going to work, kids going to school. Garbage trucks were absent. There are several major highways nearby, business developments, and car dealers all within range of normal ambient audible noise. I started to get ready for work anyways. I decided to sit back down to really think about what I would do if the sun never rises. Do I go to work or spend time with my loved ones? Because if the sun never rises, it's likely it will be a day within a day or two, max. I was a fan of apocalyptic movies as a kid, but as I got older and actually had people I loved and cared about, I no longer liked the idea of the world ending in some horrific way. As I glared at the news, everything seemed normal in the world, but nothing was normal in the world around me. Then in a blink, as if someone flipped a damn switch, the sun was out bright, rising. The smell was gone. The weird grinding thing was now replaced by people warming up the cars. Dogs barking, garbage trucks. It literally went from pitch black stars out to full morning sunrise. I am very familiar with other people's experiences with glitches. There are only a handful of them I always scoff at. Two of them are the sudden darkness and sudden daylight ones, and the ones where the world seems to be on pause, void of people and normal things. When this happened, I thought, damn it. I can't laugh at these certain glitches anymore, ever again. Case file number 466, written by Scum Fairy. Secrets of a Shout Heard Through Text. This happened yesterday, and I can't stop thinking about it. My boyfriend wasn't home, and I'd put my phone on charge behind the couch, then sat down and started reading. About 10 minutes later, I heard my boyfriend shout, "Baby!" and sat up, startled. He sometimes does this when he comes home to make me aware of his presence before he comes into the room, because I always jump if I don't hear him come in. I sat for a second, because I couldn't hear any movement, then turned around to get off the couch and go see him and what he was doing. As I got up, my phone lit up and it was a text message from him, literally a few seconds after I had just heard him call me. I thought nothing of it until I opened the living room door and he wasn't standing in the hallway. I checked my phone and he'd actually texted me something pretty urgent, and it made me even more freaked out. I'd heard him shout at me so clearly. It felt like in some weird way it was to get my attention from the book, so I'd turn around and get my phone. Case notes, file number 466. I wonder if what happened here, your subconscious was picking up on the specific frequency that was sent by your boyfriend's text, and then created the auditory hallucination of what your brain figured was urgent. Not quite to the extent of your brain decoding a text message, but enough to at least assume that something was going on that needed your undivided attention. And your phone was far away, out of sight. So your subconscious needed to kick your brain's butt into gear. Bonus file, written by Apprehensive Paint 90. Secrets of a ghost who just wants peace and quiet. When I was pregnant, my father and I stayed at his cousin's house for about a month before we moved into our apartment. It's an old farmhouse in a newly developed area of Warwick, Rhode Island. There are farms and woods in one direction and a small town to the other. We were told when we moved in that the house had been built in the mid-1800s, which to me was super interesting until my kid's father, I'll call him Brian, remarked at how the stairs seemed awfully dark and creepy for the middle of the day. And when I looked, he was right. It gave off such a sinister vibe. We slept in the living room and at night could see through the kitchen, and it was as if the stairs became a dark, uncomfortable void. When we brought this up to Brian's cousin and his wife, they proceeded to laugh and tell us stories of people being pushed down the stairs. I don't think they believed in ghosts, and the husband was an abusive drunk and drug addict, so they had enough problems clearly. That house was chaotic. The husband and wife clearly were having serious issues, emotionally and financially. They had a 6-year-old son who was afraid to sleep upstairs by himself because the shadows scared him. Great. After being in the house alone a couple times and seeing genuine human figures out of the corner of my eye, or even better, black dots on the floor with what looked like long spindly legs running, but when you look at them straight on would disappear. A few times I would see a figure out of the corner of my eye, look and see one of the family members who I hadn't heard come in. I think that freaked me out the most, because how can you explain to yourself seeing a person and sometimes nothing being there, but other times you expect it to disappear but would in fact be a person standing there this time? So weird. It was like I was being visually gaslit by ghosts. Brian would say how sitting in one chair in the living room, you'd want to look over your shoulder into the doorway, as if someone was coming down a set of stairs that used to be there. This also freaked me out, considering I slept right near the doorway and would often get a feeling of someone coming towards me. One day, me and Brian were the only two in the entire house, facing one another 2 feet away face to face, talking loud as we usually do. Directly in the middle of us, we heard a woman's voice say, "Shh." I asked if he had said that, and he stared at me with huge eyes and asked, "No, did you?" Then we laughed it off, as we were clearly talking too loud for the inhabitants, apparently. We eventually brought this up to the family, who included a second cousin living upstairs, and they confirmed they too saw and felt things. They told us they assumed the black voids that ran on the floor were just one of the dogs, and ignored it if it wasn't. The cousin who lived upstairs said the curtains to his closet often moved like they were being pushed, but he chalked it up to being stoned or tired. There was no breeze. The wife told me when they first moved there, her son would see a man in a hat, but assumed it was his imagination. How could you live in a house so clearly haunted and just pass it off? The front of the house at night was avoided by basically everyone, as it was right where it felt like someone was walking by the doorframe at you in the living room. One night, I didn't feel like walking all the way around this huge house to the car, so I walked as fast as I could to the car through the front door. I heard a deep growling coming from the side of the house. They owned 3 dogs, one of which was a bull mastiff. Too freaked out to call for her, I ran in, and to my horror, all 3 dogs were in the house. Needless to say, I didn't use that entrance again. It was such an emotionally depressing house, and maybe me being pregnant, I was just more aware of everything. There were other weird things, but one of the last conversations I had with one of the roommates renting a back bedroom, it was down a long hall at the very end, the only door in the isolated hallway. I told her about me and Brian hearing shh directly in the middle of us. She explained she hears the same exact thing in the hallway if she and her son were getting loud, but was sure it was the owner's young son sneaking into the hallway. I'm not so sure. Case file number 467, written by Esbit11. Secrets of my dad, Master Illusionist. So this happened a couple days ago. I was sitting in the kitchen, quietly drawing, when I heard the door in the garage open and close. I got up to see if my dad had gotten home, but when I checked, the door was still locked and showed no sign of ever being moved. I was, of course, confused at this, but I chalked it up to the fact that I was alone in a quiet house, so I'm bound to hear something sometimes. A few minutes later, however, I see my dad walk down the hallway. I got up to tell him he scared me with the whole locking the door back thing, and he wasn't in the hall anymore. Again, figuring he had just walked fast to the bathroom, I sat down to continue my drawing. Then, a little bit later, I hear him calling my name from the bathroom. As I got up to see what he wanted, the front door opened and my dad stepped through. When I told him what I saw and heard, we went back to the bathroom only to see that it was empty and again showed no sign of usage. Dad said this has happened to him before on multiple occasions throughout his years. This is the first time for me. Anyone had this happen to you, or is it just my dad and me? Case file number 468, written by Anonymous. Secrets of Houdini, the dog. This just happened 10 minutes ago. I first want to say this happened one other time about 2 months ago, and it left me in disbelief, and I kept trying to reason it, and eventually came to the conclusion that I must not have been paying attention and let my dog in. But this happened now, 100%, I'm sure of it. I've been up for a bit, having coffee and doing my morning routine. I've been up for over an hour or so. I'm not groggy or tired. 2 of my dogs come out to the living room and go to the door to be let outside for a pee. I let them out and go onto my deck and close the door behind me. One dog stays on the deck beside me and I watch my other dog go around the corner. He was gone for a few minutes, figured he was doing his business, so I just waited. After like 5 minutes, I called him and nothing happened. Call him a couple more times, still nothing. I go and look around the corner and he's not there, so I go look at the other side of the house, not there either. First thought was no freaking way, not again, because I had my eye on him the whole time until he went around the corner and I was waiting for him. So I'm thinking, what? No way he's inside. I sat there for a couple seconds trying to think about it and let it sink in, because I 100% believe in this and I've had weird things happen, but this is the first time I can say without any doubt this was real, if he was inside. I open the door and he's inside, laying on his bed. How did that just happen? I am a sane person with no mental problems and can without a doubt say that this just happened. This is the second time something like this has happened in the last couple of months, and now I think it's the first time it actually did happen and wasn't my mind playing tricks on me. My front yard is fully fenced, which also wraps around the 2 sides of the house. There is only one door in and out. My mind is blown. Have a good day, everyone. Case notes, file number 468. You know how in video games, one trick to reduce load on memory and processing power is that out-of-view elements and events are not actually happening. They de-render themselves. I wonder if this happens for the universe too. Your dog turned the corner, no other conscious entities were around, and so your dog could phase through the house and plop back inside. If this does happen, it's clear it isn't always the case. Also clear that the ground itself stays material, since otherwise your pup would have plummeted towards the core. Not an experience I'd wish for him. Bonus file, written by XX Glossy. Secrets of Nature's Frankenstein Monsters. My sister and I were reminiscing on our favorite childhood memories when I decided to tell her about the creatures I used to think I saw behind our old house. She told me she saw the exact same things. Both of our stories lined up so perfectly that it actually freaked us out, and we had to stop talking about it. Several years ago, we were in northwestern Oregon. We've since moved states. We lived in St. Helens, in a house with a huge wooded area behind it. We always played and explored back there. When I was back there, sometimes I would see movement in the corner of my vision. Whenever I would look over to see what it was, I would see one of these things. I never really saw them at the same time. The first one was tall, dark, and super lanky. It walked on all fours and just looked sickly. When I turned to look at it, it would freeze in place, then just bolt further into the forest. It looked leathery, with only a little bit of hair on its legs and neck. It always looked like it had big ears or antlers, but I could never tell for sure. I never saw its face. When it stood still, it had a solid shape. Whenever it bolted, it was like it lost its shape and the edges of it were constantly shifting. The second one scared me more. It had the same lanky legs and walked on all fours, but the body was disproportionately larger than the legs. It also looked like it had more hair than the other one. I would always see it just before or after the first one I described. It also had the same weird ears or antlers, but it was always standing somewhere dark, unlike the first one, which always seemed to not mind light as long as there were lots of trees. I never saw it move. It would just stand there when I saw it, and disappear when I blinked or looked away. I also saw this one's face, and it had these huge, milky white eyes with no pupils. Sometimes I would catch it watching me from behind or between the trees. They both were about the size of a large horse or something. We could also hear branches snap whenever the smaller one bolted. The first few times I saw them, I was scared, crapless. Before I saw the first one, I'd always just felt a little anxious and like I was being watched. Before I saw the second one, I'd felt the same way, but would also get a strong sense of dread to go along with it. After a while, as child me got more accustomed to seeing them, I'd whisper greetings to them. They'd stick around a few seconds longer than usual whenever I did, like they could hear my whispers. Eventually, I felt more comfortable with them being there. I didn't feel the dread or fear after a few years of seeing them. Something told me to not try and get close, but as long as I respected our distance, I almost felt safer knowing they were there. I even saw the large one, because of its eyes, in the forest outside my bedroom window one night when it was raining. I told my sister of all this, and she started freaking out, saying she thought they were like weird imaginary friends. If I had to describe something that vaguely resembles them, I'd say like a cross between a deer, a bear, large one, or a sickly wolf, small one, and a man, like a Wendigo almost, but not quite the same. They never seemed evil either, they just scared me at first. They might have just been some messed up animals, but that doesn't feel right to me for some reason. Forgot to describe the feet. I never saw them as clearly, but my little sister said they looked like a cross between paws and some really weird hands. They had longish toes that looked like fingers. Also, the little one could usually be first spotted with either one or both of its front legs and arms folded against its chest. It would put them down to walk or run. The larger one never moved like that in front of us. I always had this feeling in my gut that it didn't trust us enough to do so. Between my sister and I, we kind of agreed on the feelings they gave us, though there were some differences. She felt more of a connection to the small one, and I felt more of a connection to the big one. Simple explanation could be that I'm the oldest one and she's the youngest. Not sure what a spiritual explanation would be for that, if there even is one. At first, we were both terrified and would bolt whenever we saw them. I would get the sense of paranoia and later dread. I also felt very protective over the smallest one and respectful of the larger one. It felt like they knew where we were at all times, even if we couldn't see them. As time passed and we grew used to them, the fear and dread went away. It just became awe and silent respect. I also felt safer in the forest, as if we had something watching over us back there. My sister would bring them snacks and leftovers and books, and I built them a lean-to. A homeless dude took that as his home, Police came by to give him a ride to a shelter, and we unfortunately had to take it down. I also remember looking out of my bedroom window on the night while it was raining. Same night I mentioned originally. I'd been having nightmares and was listening to the rain. After my eyes adjusted to the dark, I spotted the big one. I almost missed it, but the eye stood out like a sore thumb. It startled me because I wasn't expecting it, but then I felt super calm and was able to fall back asleep. No more nightmares. Again, they might just be a pair of unidentified/sickly animals, but they still help me feel safe and in awe and wonder as a child. Shout out to those guys, for real. Case file number 469, written by Prestigious War 6913, Secrets of the 2-Minute Skip. A few years ago, I was with my partner at the time, and we were on the freeway heading home with her at the wheel. We made that commute every single day, and she knew it like the back of her hand, as it was originally her parents' house she grew up in. We were in our early 20s and moved in when they moved to a different state, to the point of getting off on our exit out of habit, even if we needed to get off on a different one further up ahead. We were both just listening to music, and I happened to make note of the time and looked up to see some landmark buildings and the shopping center that appeared right before our exit, which meant we were almost home. I can't explain it, but for a moment it just felt like I spaced out, unprovoked, really bad for what seemed to last only a second, and when I came to, we were a mile past our exit. For some reason, my ex and I both turned and looked at each other, immediately in disbelief. We both experienced it at the same time, and we were extremely confused as to why we were a mile past our exit when we were literally approaching the off-ramp. I'm talking like not even a half mile away. Then I said, "We just missed our exit, but how does that make any sense? We were right there." And she said something along the lines of, "I know, I was getting ready to get into the off-ramp lane. What the hell just happened?" I looked at the clock again, and it was still the same time. Usually it takes 2 minutes to get to the following exit, so it's not like we both managed to space out and miss the exit to the point of approaching the next one. Time-wise, it should have been at least 2 minutes past what I saw right before our exit, but it was the same. We couldn't get over it the whole night. We talked for hours about what could have happened, but ultimately settled on a glitch. To this day, I remember that moment vividly. Very strange. Case notes, file number 469. Time is fickle. We know this. It's woven with space itself, inseparable. You both skipped ahead in space, and yet time remained fixed, which would imply some form of teleportation, or your speed was very near infinite for a very short amount of time. The latter poses more fundamental issues. A sudden increase in velocity of that magnitude would have produced g-forces sufficient to squish you both into pudding, so I don't think it's that one. And yes, of course, I want to say this was aliens, though the time anomaly in this case is very short. Perhaps it's not aliens. He also didn't report any anomalies with the car itself, especially as our vehicles are modernized with onboard circuitry, computer systems. Any EM interference can cause them to short out or behave erratically, which alien ships seem to always produce. And he also reported feeling off and spaced out for a brief moment before this happened. Could there have been some sort of spontaneous tear in the space-time around your vehicle, and you crossed through it, effectively folding you through a small amount of the universe, emerging 2 miles ahead or so in what amounts to the blink of an eye? Your subconscious felt this effect just before it triggered. The only issue with this, at least as we understand it now, wormholes are just theoretical. Einstein-Rosen bridges are called. They shouldn't be stable enough for matter to travel through. They'd be absolutely tiny. They can also create time paradoxes as well. I'm actually reminded of an old classic movie, Donnie Darko. If you enjoy trippy sci-fi fused into a compelling puzzle, definitely check it out. Case file number 470, written by Prometheus Titan God. Secrets of a house that converges the multiverse. For the past 3 years, I have been renovating my master bedroom. Okay, renovating isn't accurate. Gutting the room down to the studs, replacing the ceiling, floor, windows, electric, everything. I'm still not done because I started it right before the pandemic and all the curfews and so on. I'm also doing it completely alone on a super tight budget. To top it all off, I'm a perfectionist with some things, and I'm 50 with back issues. So yeah, I bit off more than I could chew. It doesn't help that I'm lucky to get a few hours a month to work on it. Okay, to the glitch. My sister also lives in the same house. Money is tight, so splitting the bills makes life a bit easier. She works the night shift at a big box store. I work a day shift somewhere else. So we only see each other in passing, so it all works out. I often need to work on the room when she is supposed to sleep. Another reason it's taking so long. But she's okay with it once a week. I'll often hear her snoring in her room, which is on the south wall of my room, or her walking around talking to herself, or the television in the living room, which is attached to the north wall of my room. So depending upon where I'll hear her, I'll try to work on the opposite side of the room just to be nice. The thing that freaked me out was as I sat to take a break in the middle of the room, I could hear her clearly snoring in her room. I then, at the same time, clearly heard her walking around and talking to herself as she was watching TV in the living room. I thought it was someone else here. As soon as I open my room door that enters the living room, the TV and talking take breaks. The snoring doesn't. No, she isn't sleepwalking. She has a bad knee. She in no way could run like the Flash, and no one else was there. It gets weirder. It's not an isolated incident. It happens regularly since I started remodeling. I know people think ghosts are ghosts. This is the house I was raised in. Me and my sister got it when my parents retired and moved to an adult community. I never had a ghost experience, not even when my father did contrition on the house back in the day. But I did hear things that can be classified as paranormal. As a kid, I regularly heard what sounded like someone in the kitchen doing kitchen stuff, like opening drawers and cooking at all hours of the night. There never was anyone there. Nothing was ever moved or out of place. My mother also admitted after a few years she heard it as well, thinking it was me or my sister until she got up a few times to yell at us, only to find the kitchen empty and us sleeping. The other thing I heard regularly was a sound of distant machinery and people talking like they were at the far end of a factory or a warehouse. I heard it so many times I can tell you details, like it's always 2 to 3 male voices. They aren't intense. I can't understand what they're saying, but exactly like I am in the back corner of a warehouse just hearing normal ambient noise and going-ons. The machinery I hear is about like a conveyor belt or something like that. No, there wasn't ever a warehouse or factory here on this land. This house was built in the early 30s. Before that, it was part of a farm. Yes, there are factories close, but they are in no way close enough to hear what I was. And as a kid, most of them were abandoned, and local crooks stripped the place clean of copper and metal to make money on the scrap. Back then, my room had 2 doors, one on the south side and one on the north. The south door I locked and never used. I even blocked it off with bookshelves for years. I only used the north door. Since the remodeling started, I was temporarily using both doors for a few days. I always as a kid had nightmares about going through that door for some reason. When that was my parents' room in the 70s to 90s, they used both. Nothing traumatic happened to me in that house, so I never knew what was up with that door. I figured since I'm gutting the whole room, I'll get rid of that door for good. I overdid it a little and sealed it off using expensive extra long decking screws, pressure treated 2x4s, industrial strength decking adhesive. It's the strongest thing in my entire house now. I made it into a bookshelf that actually looks good on the wall. But now I can still hear things thrown at it. I don't know how I forgot to mention, but I also use special ridged soundproofing insulation while sealing it off. That room is almost airtight now. I went so overboard with insulating reinforcement and so on, it's like a freaking space station. I shouldn't be able to hear anything like what I can. But what tipped me over into the Twilight Zone? In that short time, I was using both doors every time I heard my sister in the 2 places at the same time again, where she actually ended up being when I checked, depending on what door I used. If I used a door on the same wall her room was on, she would be in the living room, and the snoring stopped instantly. If I used a door that opened into the living room, the sound of her talking to the TV would instantly stop and she would be in her room, snoring. Now, I know some people think I imagined it, but here's the kicker. I went on FaceTime with a friend who lives in another state. He said it sounds like your sister is snoring. I said, yeah, maybe. I put the phone on the door. He could hear it. I said, "You want to see something freaking weird?" I walked over to the other door and put my phone up to it. He said, "Wait, how is your sister watching TV and sleeping in a different room?" I laughed, holding the camera facing the door to the living room, where you can clearly hear the TV and my sister talking. I opened the door super fast. Poof, silent, empty living room. I walk outside my room, around to her room, and she's loudly snoring. I then told him the whole story. He asked me what happens if you go back in your room and go out the other door. I paused and said I didn't know because I never tried going out one door then running into the room and going out the other door. I closed my door and my sister apparently woke up, went into the living room and started watching TV. The snoring didn't start up for the rest of that day. I thought deeply about what would happen if I tried that, and my sister instantly changed places. That made me go so overboard with sealing off that door. Now, I really need to say I don't believe in ghosts, but I do think there are thin spots in our universe. I have come to the conclusion that my house sits on one of them. The warehouse sounds could be an actual real place in reality where my town was zoned differently, and the abandoned warehouses a block over were built where my house is. The sounds in the kitchen could actually have been one of us doing normal things one does in a kitchen, except in another universe. My house is a glitched place. Oddly makes sense to me. Perhaps that's why I experience so many glitches regularly. I was raised within a glitchy place. Or maybe I am the glitch and the fact I grew up in that house has affected it. No, I don't think I'm Neo, but I know there seems to be a force at play that insists on my life going in a direction that I don't want it to go. The more I fight it, the harder it pushes back. It seems like whatever it is doesn't want me to do the remodeling and really didn't like me messing with that door. To answer a few questions, yes, I have carbon monoxide detectors. Batteries are tested regularly. We have it without even having a heating or air conditioner system that would put off carbon monoxide. I also tested for toxins like mold, lead, asbestos, and radon. As I hinted towards in the post, I tend to go really overboard with projects. Also, no one in my family history has any mental illness. The only thing even remotely close is situational depression, as in only depressed over a certain situation in life. As that event goes away, so does the depression. I am not on any kind of mind-altering drugs. I don't smoke or drink alcohol anymore. It's been like 3 years since I had a beer. I just don't have time for that nonsense. Case file number 471, written by Anonymous. Secrets of a Magician's Power. I've always felt spiritual, if that makes sense, and I'm always told I'm weird or ethereal. Anyway, 2021 has been crazy for me in terms of synchronicities. Maybe because I'm looking for them these days, I don't know. Now something really stood out, and I want your opinion as to what the hell happened. I'm 35 and I've worked as a nanny since 2007. Between 2008 and 2009, I would babysit these two brothers, who were around 10 at the time. In 2010, they were old enough to babysit themselves, so I stopped working there and we lost touch almost immediately. I wouldn't visit them or see them ever. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and I get this phone call from an unknown number, but no one is talking. Sounds like a pocket call. Anyway, I'm curious, so I put the number in my phone and checked their WhatsApp picture. Lo and behold, it's the oldest of the two boys I babysat. I recognize him, even though now he's in his early 20s. I tried to find an explanation for this, but couldn't, so freaked out and blocked his number. I feel it's important to mention he is dressed as a magician in his picture. Yesterday, I finally decided to unblock and message him. I asked him if he knew who I was, and he said he didn't. My WhatsApp photo isn't of me, it's a picture of one of my favorite musicians. I told him I got a call from him a few weeks back and recognized him on his photo. Eventually, I told him who I was, and he said he remembers me but swears he doesn't know how this happened and doesn't recall calling me. Says my number isn't in his contacts. We are both super freaked out. To be clear, I've only had this number since 2018. Last time I saw him was 2010. I never gave it to anyone he knows. We don't know anyone in common. And by the way, he's a magician. That's his chosen career. I think it's important to mention that we didn't have a close bond back then when I worked there. In fact, his brother was my favorite. I can't explain how this could have happened. Any theories? Case file number 472, written by Far Association 2607. Secrets of Cinnamon Oil with a Will of Its Own. This glitch gets weirder by the minute. Last month, I purchased a 2-pack of Wilton cinnamon oil in order to make Christmas candy. I was especially looking forward to it because as a child, I ate anise hard candy every Christmas, but I wanted to have cinnamon oil as a backup in case nobody liked the anise. This year, I had enough time off that I thought I would tackle the project since I have not tasted either in many years. Not 1 hour ago, I tore every cupboard, closet, and over, under, inside, behind each drawer in my entire house looking for this oil that I distinctly remember ordering and opening. It came on a hanging yellow and purple cardboard pack, which was, as I said, Wilton brand. When it came in the mail last month, I held up that package and showed my family what it was and asked that nobody, mess with it until after I've made the candy. After ripping the house apart, I asked my husband if he remembered the cinnamon oil. Yes, of course, he replied. I was looking forward to trying the candy. I asked him if he remembered what it looked like. Yeah, purple and yellow package, 2 tiny bottles. I tell him I can't find it anywhere. I've destroyed the house all over half an ounce of cinnamon oil. He helps me look. No one has been in my kitchen since November or December, other than myself, and my son who is 6, and my husband. We keep the doors locked when we're not there. Absolutely no one could have moved it. Now I'm kind of bugging out. There's nowhere this stuff could be hiding in my house. No one was here. We don't have pets or ghosts or anything at all that would remotely explain it not being where I remember putting it. Where is it? I've had an emotional holiday season, and today I just want to make some candy, and this is making me feel a little crazy. I start questioning whether or not I've really bought it, which of course doesn't help. It dawns on me, the purchase history. At least I can see that I did order it, and then I won't feel crazy. I just want to see proof that I had it, and I feel like I can trust what the screen says. Can't I? It's not there. It isn't in the purchase history for Walmart, where I ordered groceries online, and sometimes things get shipped to the house. I check the individual orders because it will display when an item was ordered, but out of stock. Not there. I bounced over to Amazon. Nope. I'm kind of laughing at this point because this is just silly, right? I mean, I can run out and find some more oil, maybe, or maybe I need to be mentally evaluated. But my husband distinctly remembers it too. We were both standing near the dining table, and our son was sitting at the table late afternoon, like 4:30. It came in a yellow padded envelope. I showed him the oil. I put it back into the envelope and put the envelope in the cupboard where I keep all my flavorings and baking supplies. We went out for tacos. I was wearing a white shirt and I spilled a little horchata on it. My husband had the barbacoa this time, and I had the al pastor. I remember this entire day. So I go to my email, where as we all know, anytime an order is placed, confirmed, shipped and delivered, there's an email for all of that. I should have 3 to 4 separate emails for the order I placed, because if there was some technical glitch on the apps or the websites, I would at least be able to see the emails. Except it's not there. I try every keyword I can think of. I scroll through my orders. Nothing. There is neither email evidence nor in-app order history of me having purchased the oil at all. As far as anyone could possibly tell by looking in my home or online, I have no proof of ordering and receiving the package, only my memory and my husband's. In theory, that would be fine. I could attribute it to my imagination or a dream perhaps, maybe just stress or something. But my husband remembers everything the same way I do, and I can't explain that. Feels like a glitch to me. Case file number 473, written by Fusili Jerry. Secrets of the Traveling Cargo Pants. My almost 4-year-old is in preschool. On Thursday, while he was getting dressed, I laid out 2 pairs of pants for him to choose from. 1 blue pair and 1 camo pair. He chose the blue pair, so I folded up the camo pants and put them with some other clean laundry I had to bring upstairs to put away. Yesterday, Friday, was his last day of preschool before the Christmas break. When we went to pick him up, they give us a big bag of his extra clothes to bring home to wash. Later on, I was digging through the bag to throw in a load of laundry when I pulled out the camo pants I had put away the day before. He only has one pair. He definitely did not drag them to school without me noticing, as he wouldn't have been able to get them himself from where I put them, and wouldn't have had access to his backpack without my help either, Thursday or Friday. I have no idea how they would have ended up in that bag. Case notes, file number 473. Right, so at this point, many of these smaller glitches feel like those you'd see in a gaslighting prank video on YouTube. I don't mean that in the sense that they're fake, not at all. I'll put it this way, if I was given the levers of power over all creation, I wouldn't go full Sauron corrupted on all of you, no. But, and a big but, I would definitely go full Loki trickster. Everyone would get mind-screwing pranks done on them at least once or twice a day, guaranteed. Small pranks, maybe medium size, like I change the laws of gravity in a small area around the toilet bowl so your pee would fly up, or that Cool Whip in the fridge. Psych, now it's mayo. I'd categorize myself as chaotic neutral. Bonus file, written by Independent Pause 716. Secrets of the Slender Man. I haven't really spoken to anyone about this other than my boyfriend and his brother. His brother gave off the impression he thought I was crazy and laughed it off, so I have not said anything to anyone since. It's been driving me crazy ever since I saw it. This happened in March 2021. Where I live in England, there's a lot of countryside. At the time it happened, I was driving down a small country road that was parallel to a main road. Just a large field and bush on the other side, next to the main road to separate them. I was talking to my boyfriend, and I noticed this very tall, human-like figure at the side of the road. It was extremely skinny, like it was skin on bones and nothing else. Didn't appear to have clothes on, pale skin. It looked really unhealthy. I didn't really see its face, but from the quick glance I got, it looked like it had indistinguishable facial features, like it was blurred on a Photoshop app. It crossed the road onto the field in front of me extremely quickly, and then disappeared into an open field. I slowed right down and looked back into the field. It was mid-evening, so it was getting kinda dark, but enough that you could still see. There was nothing it could have hid behind. The grass was too short to hide in, and there was no way any human would have ran the entire length of that field to the bush on the other side in such a short amount of time. Whatever it was just vanished into thin air. My boyfriend told me to stop the car, but was terrified, and everything in me told me to continue driving, so I never stopped to check it out. Not sure whether that was a mistake or not. I don't know why it's terrified me so much. I can't stop thinking about it, and it's driving me crazy. I'm searching for an explanation. I know it may be unlikely, but has anyone else seen something like this? If so, any idea what it was? My only explanation is something paranormal. If it were human, how did it just vanish like that, or run into the bush that quickly?